Hi, I'm Scott Rigby and I head digital transformation for Adobe. And I'm joined here today by Mark Teperson, who's the Chief Digital Officer for the Accent Group. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Scott. Great to be here.
Mark, so tell us a bit about your role and function within the Accent Group.
So I'm the Chief Digital Officer for the Accent Group, and I have the privilege of leading a business that has 9 different retail storefronts and 13 different wholesale distribution licenses. And I get to reimagine experiences for customers every day, which I think is a pretty cool opportunity.
Great. And when you look at sort of the Australian retail landscape at the moment, what do you see as being sort of some of the challenges, and where do you see as the digital adoption maturity being at?
You know, when we think about the retail landscape, I always kind of start through the lens of the customer, right? And I think what we're seeing is this huge transformation that's happened over the course of the last 5 years, where there's been a shift in the demographics, where boomers used to be the largest cohort in terms of number and also spend. And 2 years ago, we saw this change to Gen Y overtaking boomers, now representing the largest share of population, but also the largest share of disposable income. And so in that shift, which has been quite profound because we skipped an entire demographic, the Gen Xers along the way, that's obviously sped up a lot of transformation in the market in terms of what consumers expect from retail brands, and equally what we need to do to keep pace with consumers today.
And you're adding Gen Z in that now as well.
Adding Gen Z, and when you're combining Gen Z and Gen Y, we now talk about millennials, right? And the adoption of millennials, particularly around technology and their expectation of brands in market, is just so different from what boomers in generations before them grew up with.
Yeah.
These are the digital natives. These are the guys that grew up with a mobile phone in their hands, as opposed to the boomers who learnt how to use a mobile phone when it was introduced into market. And that's creating some really interesting kind of tension points in the market and speed of adoption, I suppose, for retailers at play in Australia at the moment.
Great. And when you look at maybe the flip side, so the challenges, being able to meet kind of this demand, how do you see, what are retailers doing to meet those challenges, and what are they actually faced with at the moment?
Look, if you think about the landscape, the retail landscape generally in Australia, we have a scenario where, high rentals to begin with, we have high wage costs in Australia, but in addition to that, we've got circumstance now where we're seeing a shift in store visitation or shopping centre visitation, where numbers to malls are declining slowly, and the rise of certainly digital e-commerce transactions and also international players coming into the market is creating almost like a hyper-competitive market environment, which is incredibly challenging, particularly I think for established retail. And so you need to be forward-looking, and you need to be prepared to transform yourself, not just to excel, but to survive.
Yeah.
And I think retailers today are feeling that pinch more than ever before.
We've recently released the 2018 Digital Trends Report in Retail in conjunction with eConsultancy. And one of the biggest priorities out of that report was this focus on omni-channel. From Adobe's perspective, we kind of talk about this as fluid experiences. How do you see that playing out at Accent Group?
I think this notion of omni-experience and fluid experience really needs to be unpacked, because the way that we look at that is that it's not just the front-end experience for customers, right? It's not just the marcoms. It's not just how that translates across all the different touch points that you have with consumers. You actually have to re-engineer your back end to be able to deliver that experience authentically, because it's not just enough to be able to create a beautiful front-end experience. There has to be substance behind it for consumers. I think as we identified what the consumers were looking for from us and from our brands, what we quickly realized was that we need to reimagine how we thought about our business. I think most retailers today are stuck in this rut of of what to do with all their assets. They've got all these stores and lots of inventory, and it's all disparate and it's all spread out. And what we principally did to unlock that value was we eliminated those silos that existed across businesses and platforms. And what do I mean by that was that, you know, you often think about the silos that exist in businesses, and it's always been leveled that there's a silo that exists between digital and physical. My take on it was that there were actually silos that existed between the physical as well, because our store in regional Australia, which carries about a third of the inventory that our flagship store in the city carries, those customers in that regional area are still being exposed to those brilliant digital experiences that we're creating and that brand message, but they don't have access to the same product assortments and all of those parts of the brand. And so by eliminating those silos and making all of our inventory available across all of our consumer touchpoints, we effectively unlocked $110 million worth of inventory and 445 touch points with consumers. And instead of just thinking about our stores as experience centers for customers, we now think of them as distribution centers for our product as well. So we can deliver experience faster and meet those fluid experience opportunities that we're creating on the front end of our business.
From our 2018 Digital Trends Report, one of the exciting prospects that we saw from a retail perspective was this focus on real-time experience delivery. Now, from the Accent Group's perspective, you guys are doing this. Do you want to talk a bit more about how you're doing it?
Yeah, the whole notion around real-time sends shivers down the spines of many of our operational people, because there is such a huge promise that's put behind it, right? And I think in terms of unlocking those experiences, again, we've tried to be really focused about what our consumers are looking for from us. So particularly around wanting to be able to place an order and pick it up at its local store in near real time, so click and collect, that real-time experience creates great opportunities for consumers. I think today, around delivery of experience, when somebody makes the effort, when a customer makes the effort to come into your store, you want to be able to fulfill on that desire that they walk out with product. And when you're not in stock, that how do we create a real-time experience there? So we have delivered Endless Aisle, which effectively allows us to, if we don't have product that size in store, we can deliver it to the customer within 1 to 2 days, free of charge for the customer, to create that great experience. And I think what we're finding now with, when we think about front end and kind of fluid experience delivery, that we really want to think about the customer and the journey that they're going through to be able to really deliver what they're looking for in the moment. And it's just through listening to our consumers that those experiences are becoming available.
So one of the discussions at the moment is around, you know, the investment in a single technology platform to deliver great real-time experience across all these channels, or whether to use individual technology vendors and kind of pull that together. What's your viewpoint on that?
It's a really good question. I think one of the biggest challenges that retailers face when it comes to choosing technology stacks is being really disciplined about understanding where you're going to get the core value versus this romantic notion of being able to do all of these cool things for customers, which are really great if you have the capability and the structure to be able to support them. But most businesses fundamentally don't. And so when it comes to choosing a technology stack, where you can create a synergy around the seamless connection of experiences between platforms, as opposed to trying to integrate and create clunky integrations between best of breed platforms that don't necessarily coexist well. What we find is that the synergy we created by choosing one platform has delivered far more benefit to our organization than the single best of breed approach. And coming to terms with that has been a real transformative moment for us in terms of how we have been able to utilize and deploy that technology in our business.
That's great. Now, you know, I guess to kind of riff on that, you know, Adobe just made the acquisition of Magento, and you're a Magento user, and that commerce capability, how's that sort of helped you accelerate, you know, your business going forward with your investment in both the Adobe technology and now the acquisition of Magento and the combination of the two?
Interestingly, this is my second Adobe acquisition that I've been party to. We invested behind the original platform, which was Neolane, which became Adobe Campaign, and through that transformation and becoming part of the Adobe family, we really saw the benefits of what that has delivered to that specific product for us. And so when I think about Magento, the piece that I'm most excited about is our experience technology stack and our commerce technology stack now coming together under one roof. Because I've seen what the benefits of the campaign acquisition has delivered for our organization. And I'm really interested to see how that transformation of bringing those two clouds together really helps to drive that fluid experience that we're all chasing.
Mark, thank you very much for joining us here today.
Thanks, Scott.
If you'd like to learn more about some of the insights that we talked about today, please go and download the Adobe Digital Trends Report for 2018 in conjunction with eConsultancy from adobe.com. Thank you.